Okay, class. I'm Dr. Steve Kuniak. I've been your instructor throughout the semester, and today we're going to talk a little bit about licensing regulations across states. Now, in order to become a licensed professional counselor, you have to meet certain licensing eligibility requirements, and they vary somewhat state to state. What I'm going to talk about in this video is what is standard, or what are the general components of licensing, so that you can then start to look into these specific criteria for whatever state you're practicing in or plan to practice in. Or if you move, once you've established a license, there might be different requirements in the state that you're moving to that would require you to go in and submit some additional criteria. So generally in the same tab where this video is posted, I'm also going to post a document that identifies some websites that you can go to where you can get some resources as far as learning what your state requires and where to get that information. And then additionally, I'm going to post a file that I had created about what to do post-licensure, because a lot of folks get focused on getting their license after they've completed their master's degree, but then they never go on to really do anything more with it, or they're not sure what to do with it. And so even though a license is one of the first things that you need post-masters in order to really establish yourself individually as a provider, there's some stuff you need to do before you can just start setting up an office and then getting insurance compensation privately for your license. So first off, let's talk about the licensing criteria across states. One of the things that you need to do is you need to complete an accredited master's degree program in order to be considered for licensure, and that's pretty much across the board. CACREP is working to standardize that process or meet all of the criteria that most states will require, or every state. I mean, the goal is for every state to require the same, and for CACREP to cover that. And so this program is in the process of working towards its CACREP accreditation, and from what I understand, they're at this point pretty much complete. So the positive is that since CACREP is that far along in considering this program, then your licensing criteria for education should be pretty well met at this point. Usually what that means is specific coursework that's required in the program, and then they require a practicum and an internship is pretty much standard as far as education goes. Now, once you've completed the educational component, there's a standardization piece for the licensing hours that you accrue. So this is post-masters. So you would start accruing hours after you have earned your master's degree. Now that's important because it used to be that you could count some of your practicum and internship hours towards your license, and that's really pretty much gone, if not gone, across the board. I haven't heard of a state that has allowed that in quite a few years now. So after the date of graduation, you become eligible to start earning licensing hours. Now what that means is you have to practice in a place where you can do counseling activities, and then you have to find a supervisor who's qualified to be able to supervise you. That's something you'll have to check state to state, and those things change a little bit over time. So like in Pennsylvania where I practice, I'm a supervisor for people's licenses, and what that means is I have to have 5 years counseling experience, and 2 of those years at least have to be post earning my own license. So I have a license as a professional counselor. I have over 5 years counseling experience, and at least 2 of those years, and for me it's more, have been earned post license. Some states require some additional criteria. Some states require less criteria. So you want to take a look at what your state requires as far as LPC supervision, to make sure that your supervisor qualifies. In most states, there's some back and forth where you're allowed to receive half of your hours at the most from someone who is not an LPC, but they're going to want half or more of your hours to come from someone who is an LPC. And what you might get there is some agencies or some groups will have someone who provides supervision who maybe is a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist. And so, like in PA, you can have up to half of your hours with that person, but then you would have to go outside of the agency and contract with someone to be your LPC supervisor. So that's something to consider. So there is typically an educational component. The supervision component is biggest. It usually takes longest. You have to accrue quite a few hours, and usually there's a minimum of 2 years of supervision in order to then be eligible for your license. Typically, then they want to do some background checks on you, and there's a whole paperwork packet that you have to fill out and get approved through. You need someone to sign off for you on that. Often it's just your licensing supervisor. In some states, they're going to require you to also have someone else verify that you are of sound moral judgment, so you're not going to hurt anyone. Typically, they want you to complete something like a professional resume so that they see a little bit of background of your information as a counselor, like where you practiced and so forth. And then additionally, most states are going to require, there's a dues fee, for them to consider all of this, and then some sort of an examination. So in Pennsylvania and in many states, it's the National Counselor's Exam, and that is managed by the National Board for Certified Counselors, the NBCC. They're the primary place that I'm going to list for you to look up your licensing information, a link to the NBCC's webpage. They actually kind of catalog all of that and keep track of it, so they're a really great resource. You can earn your National Certified Counselor credential from them from taking one of their exams and getting supervision, and that's something in addition to your license you can do to kind of establish yourself as a professional. The NBCC also manages a lot of the CEUs that you'll need then to maintain your license. Those are kind of the general components that are across states for licensure. Again, every state's going to be a little bit different or have some nuance here or there that's slightly different, so you want to look that up and know that. If you have questions about specific criteria, the best way to learn about that would be to email a representative at your state licensing board. And I suggest emailing because then this creates a paper trail so that you don't just call a person and they say, oh yeah, your job qualifies, and then you go to apply 2 years later and your job does not qualify. You want to have some sort of documentation to identify that. Now, I don't want to panic anyone. I don't want anyone to worry about, oh my God, I'm not going to get my license. That doesn't happen very often. But in the unlikely event that it did happen, it would be nice for you to be able to produce a document that says, this is in fact approved and so on and so forth. It's going to help bolster your argument. So if there's any specific questions about licensing, I'm going to encourage you all to email me. And certainly, again, state to state, it's going to be different. Check my resources out that are posted underneath this video. And then you'll see that I have a list of things to do post-licensure. This includes getting yourself a national provider identifier and getting yourself set up with the malpractice insurance and things like that. Some web pages that help to be distribution centers for insurance companies. Generally, again, that's going to vary a little bit, but this is going to give you some steps so that you're not just flying blind wondering what you do next. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that the semester has been helpful for you. I know online teaching is a little bit hands-off, so I'm glad to provide this video so that at least you can get a little bit of a voice and a face to the name. Again, this has been a pleasure working with you guys, and I'm Dr. Steve Kuniak, and I'm going to sign off, and I wish you the best, and please contact me if you have any questions, and we will go from there. Thank you. Bye-bye.